Trump's peace gamble. What Putin really said behind closed doors. Trump stood on stage in Phoenix and made a stunning claim. President Putin said that he wants to meet with me as soon as possible. The crowd erupted. Finally, the dealmaker president was going to end the bloodiest European war since 1945. But behind the bold headlines and Truth Social posts, a very different reality is unfolding in luxury hotels in Miami and the marble halls of the Kremlin. The Miami meetings. Secret talks that changed everything. Over the weekend, Russian presidential envoy Kirill Dmitriev sat down with Trump's special envoy, Steve Witkoff, and his son-in-law Jared Kushner in Miami. The meetings were supposed to be secret. They weren't supposed to leak. But what emerged paints a picture far different from Trump's optimistic public statements. Dmitriev told reporters the talks were proceeding constructively. That's diplomatic speak for we're still talking but haven't agreed on anything. According to sources, Russia views changes made by Europe and Ukraine to US proposals as largely unconstructive. Here's what actually happened. Witkoff and Kushner conducted marathon talks with Putin on December 2nd in Moscow, presenting 4 documents outlining Washington's plan. No immediate breakthroughs were announced by either side. An unnamed senior Ukrainian official revealed the Miami meeting was simply a debrief by the Americans and not a negotiation session. Translation: the Russians listened politely in Moscow, said interesting, and went home. Now they're back in Miami, still saying interesting, while Ukraine bleeds. What Putin actually wants versus what Trump thinks he wants. Putin said Thursday he was ready for talks anytime with Trump, adding, "I haven't talked to him in more than 4 years. I am ready for it, of course, anytime." Sounds cooperative, right? But here's what Putin also said. The issue lies entirely on the other side. The ball is entirely in the court of our so-called Western adversaries. First and foremost, the leaders of the Kiev regime. Putin told NBC News that the ball was in Ukraine and the West's court in peace talks, showing no sign of any new compromise on the Kremlin's hardline terms. Putin's demands haven't changed since 2022. Ukraine must relinquish claims to territory Russia seized in 2014, including Crimea, and the Donbas Ukrainian troops must withdraw from parts of Donbas that Russia hasn't captured. Militarily, Ukraine must agree to neutrality and reduce the size of its armed forces. Ukraine abandons NATO membership forever. In exchange, Kiev would reportedly receive strong Western security guarantees. But what do those guarantees mean when Putin can just invade again in 5 years? The 24-hour promise that became as soon as possible. Remember Trump's campaign promise? He said if elected, he could end the war in 24 hours. We're now approaching 1 year of his second term, and the war rages on. Trump recently criticized Biden's policy change, allowing Ukraine to use US-supplied weapons to strike inside Russian territory. That's Trump signaling to Putin, "I'm on your side." But Putin isn't biting. As Russian Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Ryabkov said, Trump is giving contradictory signals based on principles that do not align with Russian interests. Putin has learned that Trump talks tough, but backs down. Why make concessions when you can wait him out? The Kremlin's strategy: delay, destroy, demand. Michael Froman, president of the Council on Foreign Relations, explained Putin's game. He wants to have a long process of diplomatic engagement while he continues to bomb Ukraine's energy infrastructure and makes incremental progress on the ground. Every day negotiations drag on. Russia advances. Putin claimed at his marathon press conference, "Our troops are advancing all across the line of contact, faster in some areas or slower in some others, but the enemy is retreating in all sectors." Putin himself said that he is not eager to seek an end to the fighting in Ukraine because a ceasefire would only give Ukraine a chance to consolidate its position. Think about that. The Russian president openly admits he doesn't want peace because war benefits him more. Behind the scenes, what Trump's team really found in Moscow. Trump told reporters, "I can tell you that they had a reasonably good meeting with President Putin. We're going to find out. It's a war that should have never been started." Reasonably good in diplomacy means total failure. When meetings go well, you announce deals. When they go reasonably good, it means both sides are still miles apart. Kremlin aide Yuri Ushakov revealed the harsh reality. Russia had not seen all the latest proposals, so every point on the list needed discussion. After the Moscow talks, the Kremlin said there was no compromise on the plan. Trump's team keeps revising their proposal. Details of an initial 28-point plan were presented to Ukraine last month. Kiev and its European allies worked quickly to amend it down to a 19-point plan. US officials claimed there was 90% consensus on the proposal with Ukraine and European partners. But here's the problem. That 90% consensus doesn't include Russia, and Russia is the one doing the invading. The Oreshnik threat, Putin's nuclear saber rattling. Putin has waxed lyrical about the capabilities of Oreshnik, Russia's new ballistic missile. He even told journalists that the West could take part in an experiment. Let them choose a target, for example in Kiev, where they can concentrate all their air defense systems, and we'll attack it with Oreshnik, and then we'll see what happens. This isn't normal diplomatic language. This is a threat to nuke Kiev disguised as scientific curiosity. Russia's November 21st attack on Dnipro with Oreshnik seems to have strengthened Putin's belief in a Russian victory. Trump's leverage problem. All stick, no carrot. Trump has tried threatening Putin. It hasn't worked. Trump has shown increasing frustration with Putin for failing to agree to at least a ceasefire, and has imposed some sanctions over the Russian leader's refusals. But Putin isn't afraid of Trump's sanctions. Russia's overstimulated wartime economy may be approaching a crisis point, but Putin is sticking to positive talking points even as ordinary Russians feel the pain from high food prices and a plummeting ruble. The Kremlin is approaching a tipping point when the social contract between the state and the people will inevitably shift. Russians are being asked to accept rising inequality and a decline in quality of life in exchange for short-term stability and symbolic pride in the idea of a fortress nation. The question is, will Putin's economy collapse before Trump's patience runs out? Europe's panic, left out of the deal. Ukrainian President Zelensky told reporters the US said they would have a separate meeting with representatives of Russia. They proposed the following format: Ukraine, America, Russia, and probably Europe as well. Notice the word probably. Europe, Ukraine's main supporter, is an afterthought. Trump and his team have shown little interest in bringing European allies on board. For Russia, having the scheme for cessation of hostilities outlined between Moscow and Washington means Kiev and European capitals will be a sideshow. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov mocked what he described as the EU and NATO stupor after the Trump-Putin call. The reality check: no deal on the horizon. Despite Trump's sunny optimism and Putin's willingness to meet any time, the reality is stark. There is no deal. There will be no deal soon. And any deal that emerges will likely reward Russian aggression. A whole series of Russian officials, including Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov and Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Ryabkov, have rejected the possibility of the Ukraine conflict being frozen. Russia wants total victory, not a ceasefire. The US proposal offers security guarantees to Ukraine comparable to NATO's Article 5 Mutual Defense Treaty. European officials detailed those terms as including a multinational force stationed in Ukraine, helping provide air and sea defense. But Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth insisted that NATO should play no role in any future military mission to police the peace in Ukraine. So who's going to enforce these guarantees? The Boy Scouts? Putin's endgame. Waiting for Trump to blame Ukraine. Putin criticized Ukraine as being the obstacle to peace negotiations after Zelensky has repeatedly accepted US demands for a ceasefire. This is classic Putin. Start a war, refuse to compromise, then blame the victim for not surrendering fast enough. Putin said he would not be held responsible for rejecting a peace deal put forth by Trump, saying the responsibility lies with Ukraine. Trump is falling into this trap. Trump told Politico, "They're using war not to hold an election. I would think the Ukrainian people should have that choice." Zelensky's term would have typically ended in May 2024. But according to Ukraine's constitution, elections cannot be held during martial law. By questioning Ukraine's democratic legitimacy while its cities are being bombed, Trump gives Putin exactly what he wants: doubt about whether Ukraine deserves support. What happens next? 3 possible scenarios. Scenario 1. The false peace. Trump pressures Ukraine into accepting a deal that freezes the conflict along current lines. Russia gets to keep 20% of Ukraine. Ukraine gets vague security guarantees that mean nothing. In 5 years, Russia invades again. Scenario 2. The long war negotiations collapse. Trump gets frustrated and reduces support for Ukraine. Europe steps up, but not enough. The war grinds on for years, killing hundreds of thousands more. Scenario 3. The humiliation. Ukraine collapses under military pressure and lack of Western support. Russia takes everything it wants. Putin is emboldened to threaten the Baltic states next. Trump claims he ended the war. None of these scenarios are good. All of them are more likely than Trump's fantasy of a quick, beautiful deal where everyone wins. The truth behind the headlines. Trump says Putin wants to meet as soon as possible. What Putin actually wants is for Trump to force Ukraine to surrender, while Putin pockets his territorial gains and prepares for the next war. Witkoff said, Russia remains fully committed to achieving peace in Ukraine. What Russia is actually committed to is achieving victory in Ukraine, which is very different from peace. Putin said Russia was ready for negotiations and compromises. But every Russian compromise involves Ukraine giving up land, sovereignty, and security, while Russia gives up nothing. The Miami meetings continue. The press releases speak of constructive dialogue. The reality: as negotiators met in Miami, Russia launched 97 drones into Ukraine overnight, of which 75 were shot down. That's what constructive dialogue looks like in Putin's world. Talk peace while bombing civilians. Trump promised to end this war in 24 hours. Nearly a year later, he's learning what every president before him learned. Vladimir Putin doesn't make deals. He takes what he wants and dares you to stop him. And so far, Trump, like Obama and Biden before him, hasn't figured out how to call that bluff without risking World War III. The clock keeps ticking. The bombs keep falling. And in Miami, luxury hotels, diplomats keep having constructive meetings that produce nothing but press releases and false hope.